nasty, and that has been slipped in by Mr. Jack Straw and your Mr. Gordon Brown. I'm sorry to throw that at you, and we haven't been told about it. Keep it light-hearted. South of the border, all the English blame everything on you guys, because most of the MPs are Scots. Cameron's claiming to be one. I don't know whether he is. When I come up here, everything gets blamed on the English. Well, the Welsh blame it on both of us. And this is deliberate because somebody's manipulating. We know where the boundaries are. I was victimised because I had red hair at school. We know where the boundaries are, and we know what's acceptable and what's not. Somebody's stirring the pot. And we know when we go and visit the Muslims, somebody really wants all of us to be really mad with the Muslims, because the moment there's trouble on the streets, we can be really controlled. So keep your mind open on the Ministry of Justice. It doesn't mean what it says. Now, this is a bit of an embarrassment for dear old Common Purpose. When I started talking about Common Purpose a few years ago, I gave very strong hints that we were starting to see nasty characters involved with it. And sure enough, when we'd done enough work, we began to get on the right trail. So this is James Rennie, who most of you will have heard with, involved with paedophiles abusing children as young as 3 months. What you weren't told is James Rennie was a Common Purpose graduate. And that meant that he would have been selected as an appropriate Common Purpose graduate by a Common Purpose advisory board. And if that's not bad enough, the fact that a senior police officer was on that board which helped select him is of great interest. Now, I did a talk in, I forgot where it was, London, and just before I gave the talk, somebody came up and gave me the bit of the web page here. This is not off Common Purpose's normal web page. This is off parts of their site that you need a code word to access. And here is his profile, still up on the 30th of October 2009, well after the time he was sentenced. If you like sweets, where would you like to work? A sweetie shop. Common Purpose is secretive, it runs networks, it teaches people effectively how to interfere with other people's free will. It operates under Chatham House rule, it doesn't declare its members. What a wonderful place to go if you're a paedophile. If that organisation then specifically targets youth and young children, you're in the sweetie shop. And it's very funny that 2 weeks after we started to post this information, Common Purpose has just attacked my host site and they've pulled us off the web. But we will be up shortly. Here's the chief executive. She doesn't like me very much. She really doesn't like me. She believes in free speech, but not where anything is critical of Common Purpose. I have not received one letter, email, phone call, or anything else saying that what I'm doing is wrong and I should stop it, but they work behind the scenes to try and undermine me, which I'll show you. If you read her book, don't buy it. Borrow it, because you don't want to waste the money. Read the language. She's talking about expert idiots. The ordinary idiots are us. The experts are the bright ones. She's talking about coercion. She's talking about fifth columnists. Now, this woman, Demos, she knows what she's doing. She's setting up, as far as I'm concerned, networks which are identical to international communist cells. And those cells are now being linked across Europe, and they are starting to strip away democracy. It's scary stuff. Now, this is Caroline Duckworth, the chief executive of Common Purpose, and this is the letter that was sent to the host site. I've got a copy of it here. I'm not going to read it all, but they got their knickers in a twist. Well, sorry, she got her knickers in a twist, because she said that we were using copyright material and it's being adapted and misused. Well, all the documents on the website are in the public domain, so I'm not sure what the problem is. And we haven't taken any of their, logos. We have adapted some, but it's not their logo. And the the blurb you can see here are documents she doesn't like on the website. And then in paragraph 5, I have in good faith belief that use of the copyrighted materials described above as allegedly infringing is not authorised by the copyright owner, its agent or law. Hang on a minute, she's supposed to say to me, you are breaching copyright, and I'm supposed to say, you are alleging that. How can she allege that I'm breaching it? Do you see? But she didn't send this to me, she sent it. And then she swears that, that it's accurate and that the exclusive right is allegedly infringed. It's confusing, isn't it? It's because this is a trick, this is a false accusation to the website host in order to get us taken down. And that is just the end, showing that there's a signature. I do like to prove things. This was a statement she had, web pages displaying information that's been disclosed under freedom of information, and it's been issued to the public without our permission. So when I've got a letter from the Ministry of Justice, they've got to get permission from a charity called Common Purpose. How does that work? Well, it works because Common Purpose isn't an ordinary charity. It's a very, very powerful political charity. And Gordon Brown and his boys, and Cameron and his boys, and Clegg know all about it, and they know what it's doing. This was an earlier letter where they tried to gag us. They wrote to all their advisory people and complained that Brian Gerrish and other people were digging out information, and they consulted expert lawyers and PR relations people and local government leaders. What does that mean? Well, the local government leaders they're referring to are the ones they've trained but haven't told us. So in their own text, you can see that they are using people within the public service. This is a breach. This was an email where they're saying that Brian Gerrish, everything he's saying is totally without foundation and inaccurate. They're defaming me because defaming me is a good weapon, but I only deal in evidence. Where does defaming as a weapon come from? Soviet social, political, military doctrine. All the politicians who we're upset with fed from the pot of money, and I believe that money was set up deliberately to get them to feed so they could be undermined. I'm not sympathetic because I think 95% of our politicians aren't worth the paper they're written on, but they were set up, and they were set up to undermine them. Because when you don't have faith in your own politicians, you're ready for the new political era. Untrue, offensive and defamatory complaints about Common Purpose. Sorry, love, where's your letter? Now, Gerard Batten, I don't often bring other politicians in, but I am him, because he raised an issue in the European Parliament where he pointed out that Neil Kinnock had been doing things with the Soviets, and he also pointed out a bit about Baroness Ashton, which was connected with Soviet and communist funding. Why do I do that? Because one of, I've forgotten his name now, one of the Soviet dissidents, researchers, did a brilliant article exposing the relationship between New Labour and the Communist Party, and it's riddled. I'll just come on a bit. If I come back to that, you'll see the connection in a minute. Now, this is Caroline Duckworth. That's the duck. All right? I've got to try. It's getting near Christmas. Yeah? What's the background to this lady? She hasn't got one. She is talking about being involved with a few national stores, Habitat and Lewis's. And yet she's the chief executive of a charity which is now training everybody, including military leaders and politicians and doctors. How do you go from that to that? Because they're not interested in what you can do, they only want to manipulate you. So this poor lady doesn't realise it, but this shaky letter she wrote, I think she was probably quite frightened. That's why she believed and alleged, but she's writing it. And that's because she's been told to do it, because Julia Middleton doesn't like putting her head above the surface. She's that sort of leader. Now, you guys have got some brilliant people working for you. Has anybody ever visited this site? Go and have a look. Scotland Against Crooked Lawyers. And you will get the best snapshot you've ever seen into what's really going on into your law system. And this isn't personal, because we've got the same stuff going on south of the border. Corrupt, paedophile judges, barristers, solicitors. And the Law Society in England, the chief executive was a lady called Janet Paraskeva until a few years ago, common purpose trained, 1,760 cases outstanding of fraud, corruption, perjury. These people have got in amongst the most important institutions and they're collapsing them into chaos. And when you can see the mess, the mire, we can do something about it. This is an excerpt from an article appearing in the papers saying that although paedophiles are being identified amongst social services, if anybody works for the social services, I'm not saying every person is a paedophile. We're talking about nasty people burying their way in. So these are articles from the papers where they're saying these people were known about but nothing was done. Who would not want to do something about them? People who want to see the moral and social decline of this country. And we are already seeing material appearing in Germany and originally through Liberty in this country, suggesting that paedophilia should be normal and acceptable. If you agree with that, please see me afterwards because I'd like to know why. If you think your children are safe, they're not. It's not dirty old men in Max. We are dealing with cover-ups at the highest level. The highest level. Dunblane, Operation Orr, part of the cover-ups. Here's a few social services names in South Wales where you've got lots of young people committing suicide. Not an accident. These people are all common purpose trained. Come on, machine. It's a big one. I did a talk with Ian Crane, AV3, totally on the subject of child snatching by the state, and there are some videos available on that. Too much information to give you today, but I will give you a bit of it. The crime is that children are being stolen, and if you want to see something break up a family pretty quickly, something nasty with the children does it. The stress and the angst brings mum and dad at each other's throats in no time at all. It's not happening to one or two families, it's happening to thousands. It follows a template. It includes this lot: lies, falsified evidence, falsified documents, cover-ups. And it's happening right through social services in this country, in Northern Ireland and in ERA. It's also happening in other European countries, which I'll talk about. A lot of children, I'm going to skip these because this is part of my original talk, but you are talking about thousands of children going into care, in inverted commas, not a few hundred. The headlines have been in the press. The UK column was the first paper to use the title child snatching, and now that's being used as an acceptable introduction to these articles talking about children being taken away. We are now seeing children taken away from mothers before the child is born. Not because the mother has harmed any other children, but because social services deem there to be a future risk. That's a thought crime. That's 1984, and it's now on your doorstep. Look out for the language. The moment you see the language, you will be getting a feel for what's operating. Visioning, can't read them here. Visioning, diversity, leaders, collaborate. You'll see more and more public sector documentation talking about collaboration. That is being written by somebody who knows that we're setting up a new society. Well-being. When they're talking about your